What's up, YouTube? Red and Bordy here. Today, we are going to talk about tuning orbs in New World. Now, this is a new feature that they just announced with the May update. Very interesting, Bordy. I don't know. You played a little bit of WoW in the vanilla days and the lockout days where you get locked out of activities such as raids and stuff. So the spirit of tuning orbs is the same. So here it goes. To increase the rewards of expeditions, we have gated entrance to expeditions on one party member having a tuning orb. Tuning orbs will be given for each expedition quest and can be crafted from materials found in Aeternum. So this is an interesting take on lockouts and keys. You can visit the dungeon endlessly, Bordy, but you will need a tuning orb to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. It is pretty interesting, man. And one thing that I find kind of interesting whenever I read tuning orbs, the thing that jumped out to me, and this is kind of a little bit off the beaten path here and not on the mechanic of the tuning orb, but the orb itself, man, it kind of ties into the lore a little bit, dude. Is this going to be one of the orbs that the ancients are holding in their hands? And that's what we have to use to open up the gates to get into these ancient technology dungeons. I think that might play into this a little bit, which is pretty cool, but that's kind of on the lore side. As far as the mechanics go, I think it's a pretty neat mechanic. I think what they're trying to do here is limit your amount of times in the dungeon, because they did increase the XP that you're going to get from running these things, and they increased the rewards that you're going to get from running these things. So I guess they're just trying to gate those a little bit with this mechanic. Either way, I think it's fine. It'll be something else to craft and to sell. Can we sell these things? I don't know if I've seen that in the patch notes or not.
It does seem like, I thought you could potentially sell them, but maybe they are bound.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't see that part. I know. So you can craft them with the stonemasonry skill. They are limited. You can only craft a limited number a week, which I think is pretty interesting. You're kind of locked to how many you can craft per week, so it will gate you there a little bit, and then you can only obtain them once through the initial quest. So it doesn't say anything about being able to sell them, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out once the game launches.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because apparently the only tuning orb you're going to get to run a dungeon is through the first initial quest, or at least it seems that way. So then from then on, if you want to run the dungeon, you have to be in a group with somebody who has a tuning orb. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do like the fact that the higher level tuning orbs require more resources, which is drops from like a high level elite POI chest. That gives you another reason to go farm this stuff. Right.
And then another reason to, if you can't buy the orb itself or sell the orb itself, at least another reason to try to buy the resources. So that's going to help the economy a little bit. So these things do, I think, help some aspects of the game. And I think it's fine to have some sort of key to get into the dungeon, to give players another route of something to do. I guess some people might see this as kind of a nuisance that you can't just queue up and run the dungeon. What do you think is the main goal behind having these tuning orbs in the game, Red? Is it just to prevent players from just running these things and farming so much XP per week in these dungeons, or maybe to make it feel like more of a special experience for players?
It's very interesting, man. It kind of seems like they're going back towards the roots of MMOs by having, like lockout features in these dungeon or these experiences. It also helps the economy. Like you said, it helps make crafting more viable, especially stonemasonry. It does add to the lore, which I think is cool. The idea of needing this ancient technology, like you had mentioned with the tuning orb, to access these expeditions that have been sealed off by the ancients. So I like the flavor of it. I do like the idea of needing one of these things to run the dungeons. We know with the arenas, you needed keys to get into them, and those drop randomly in the world. So tuning orbs seem to be the same way too. And overall, I just think it's a pretty cool system. It's unique, And so far, they also haven't announced plans for any sort of, looking for dungeons. So basically, you're going to have to manually put together a group, and you're going to need a tuning orb to do so. So, if you go get a tuning orb or craft a tuning orb, that can help you form a group for these dungeons. And I find it interesting that, maybe if you don't get a good group together and fail the dungeon, then maybe your tuning orb goes away. You have to go get another one.
I would assume so. I would think that you can unlock the door once with that tuning orb, and then if you wipe, you're probably done. That would be my assumption anyway. I don't know if that's how it's going to work or not, because we don't have very specific information here. We just kind of have an overview of what the tuning orbs are. But overall, I think the system is pretty neat. So on the topic of kind of real quick of the group finder, what do you think about? Do you like not having a group finder in there now that we have tuning orbs and these other aspects of the game that may make it a little bit harder to form a group for a dungeon? Do you like not having a group finder in the dungeon and kind of running this old school?
Yeah, for now. There's supposed to be 6 expeditions on launch. They've announced them all at this point. There's one every 10 levels, and then of course 2 at max. So you got your 25, 35, 45, 55, and then 2 at 60. Potentially, maybe one of those is overtuned, like at 65. All the mobs are 65 or whatever. So yeah, I think there's not a lot of activities like, as far as the expeditions go that you can queue for. We do know that Outpost Russ is a queue. And then a lot of the siege and the invasions is a queue style activity. So it wouldn't surprise me if they add, the dungeon finder or the, looking for group for these expeditions in the future, because there's already systems like that in the game, possibly a board like in the town that allows you to queue up for certain expeditions. I could see them doing that as well. But on launch, if they don't have plans for it, I think it'll be just fine. It's only 5 people. And like you said, if you have a tuning orb, then makes it a little bit easier to put together a group.
Yeah, absolutely. Whoever holds the orb is going to be able to put together a group pretty quickly, I would imagine. If you've already met your max level crafting of orbs, or you can't get one for whatever reason, you might have a little bit harder time finding a group, which could help. I think the point they're trying to make, which is kind of to gate you out of running that content so much during 1 week, because the rewards have been greatly increased. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing turns out, man. Overall, I think the tuning orb system is pretty okay. We'll have to see it in action to see if it's more of a nuisance or more of kind of a cool feature that's added into the game. But I think on paper, it sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, it just reminds me of old school, tactics or old school mechanics in MMOs. I think a lot of people are fond of those days, obviously. And I think this is something to note, that nostalgia oftentimes carries how cool and how good we thought things were back then. So like you said, maybe this mechanic is something that's just more of a nuisance. But like you said, I think it's a little bit making it a little bit more difficult, because they don't want you just spamming dungeons. They want you out there experiencing the open world as well. So we'll see, man. We'll see how these tuning orbs work, how easy they are to craft. Maybe they will be a little bit easier to craft than we think they are right now. Or maybe they drop more frequently. Time will tell. But I do like the attempt to make a unique system for this expedition system as well. Yeah, I do too. Another flavor that makes New World a little bit different than what we have out there right now. So right. I'm all for that. I'm all for trying new things and seeing how it works out. Hopefully the system will be good and not a nuisance. But you made a good point there about how hard they are to craft. If they're going to be easy or hard, we don't know that information yet either. So it'll be interesting to see how these play out, man. I'm excited to check the system out for sure. For sure. All right, guys. Well, that about does it for the Tuning Orbs video. Let us know in the comments below what you think of the system. Again, thank you to our patrons. You guys support us. We really appreciate it. There's a bunch of you now. It's incredible. You'll see your names in the credits. Thank you so much for subbing to the YouTube channel. If you haven't already, hit the subscription button, the notification bell for New World content like this. We do, again, videos every day at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday. So we have a lore coming up on a lore episode for New World coming up on Friday too. If you're into the lore of New World, we've talked a lot about the ancients and the expeditions and the technologies available to them. So go look at the previous lore episodes, and we'll have a brand new one for Friday for you. Until then, we'll see you in the next video.